Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. And today, I am so excited to have Michelle Goldrick with us. She is from London, and we actually connected at the MoMondays event in Guelph back in February. And I heard her story and just couldn't help but fall in love with her, honestly, and knew that when this podcast came to life, this was somebody that I really wanted to reach out to. And as soon as I reached out, she was an absolute yes. So I'm very, very thrilled to have her here today with us. So I'm going to go into a little bit of Michelle's bio, and then we're going to welcome her on. So Michelle comes from London. She's a certified personal trainer with over 20 years experience in the fitness industry, with adding some additional certifications in pre- and postnatal specialized personal training. Over the years, she has helped many women achieve and sustain their fitness and weight loss goals before, during, and after pregnancy and into menopause. Michelle trains out of her home, her own home-based personal training studio. She has a very large online training client base, and she is a wife, entrepreneur, and a mother to a very active 5-year-old daughter. Most recently, being a breast cancer survivor, diagnosed in September of 2013 with mastectomy in December 2013, she now also understands the unique obstacles to overcome physiologically and emotionally that younger women with early age diagnosis can go through. So I am so excited to have you here with me today. So welcome, Michelle.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So we're just going to kind of start nice and light. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? We've got some backstory there of where you are. What are you doing right now? Like, what are you up to right now?
Right now, I'm doing my personal training.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually focusing in lately a lot more into my online programming. Opened up a bunch of different online programming situations. So a bunch of new stuff that I'm working on my website. So freeing up my time and taking things more online.
That's awesome. So as in online training, is that something then that I get a program and I work at home and I'm accountable to you?
That's exactly it.
Yes.
And
awesome.
it is definitely the way that people tend to be going lately.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it more accessible for them to be able to do their training at their own time, at their own pace, whenever it works out best for them. So.
Well, that's awesome. And it allows them the freedom with their schedule, right? And
that's exactly
they have young kids and they have other demands. I mean, people are going 24/7, which isn't great, but we're really packed. So this allows people to fit their fitness in, right?
Yes. Yeah. Our schedules are way too full these days.
No, well, that's actually a big problem. I think that's actually a really, really big problem. So you love what you're doing right now, and you're making a difference in women's lives. I love the online training. I love the stance that you take for women and encouraging them the importance of fitness and taking care of themselves. I'm assuming life wasn't always like this.
No.
Yeah.
Not always, no.
No.
Yeah, I've kind of been through the ringer a little bit over the last 10 years or so, but I feel come out of that, and I think I've come out of it with a deeper perspective on things. So, and I'm using that perspective to tell my story, to share my story, to hopefully create a difference and empower other women into coming out of their own.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. May we ask, like, how old were you when you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
Oh, 36.
36. Very young.
Yes.
Very young. And I'm assuming a surprise. Is there a family history? Is there any that?
Absolutely no family history.
Wow.
They did all the genetic testing. They weren't able to trace it back anywhere to there, but they did suggest that it was probable that it was my birth control, the use of a certain birth control that I was using.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's disturbing. That is disturbing. So, yeah. So when you take me through some of those points in times of what went through your head and how you handled the diagnosis and what life was like for you then.
I didn't handle it well.
Mhm.
I was a single mom, and I had a little girl that was a year and a half old.
Wow.
And I didn't know what was going to happen, you know. So
Mhm.
obviously you start thinking the worst, you know, what am I going to do? How am I going to plan this? You know, you're starting to write out your will, put in legal guardianship in place, and all of
Yeah.
these things. So, um, you know, they when they first diagnosed me, they didn't give me a great prognosis just because of my age.
Mhm.
Without doing the pathology report or getting any of that information back, they basically made sure that I was aware of the fact that it was a big possibility that I would be doing aggressive chemo and radiation and all of this. So, you know, I didn't know how I was going to work. I didn't know how I was going to support my daughter. I didn't know how I was going to even look after her or look after myself. And there wasn't a whole lot of resources out there in order to help me out. So, yeah, it was definitely the most scariest time of my life, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I think anybody listening now, you can feel it in your voice to be in that point of time, being a single mom, being 36, trying to figure out what you're going to do. You know, you're trying to plan for the worst, but still trying to be optimistic. That roller coaster must have been an absolute whirlwind for you.
Yeah.
I can't even fathom.
And yet
So,
the psychological
hmm,
aspect to that was it was worse than the cancer itself, for sure. I
wow.
mean, I wasn't sleeping at night. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was terrible. It was awful, for
And
sure.
yeah, no. So, I mean, you can see how I mean, obviously it's serious, but it impacts every single aspect of your life, right? And to recognize for people to understand there's so little resources available, that's tough because look at your situation there. Like I said, as a single mom, like what do I do? How do I deal with this over here? But I still got somebody who needs me over here.
That's
So
exactly it.
and needs me daily, right? So how do I juggle that? So I'm sure you went through a period of time there where it was really challenging for you. Can you think of turning points in time where you mentally kind of started to gain some strength or start to see things differently or started to change your mindset? Can you think back to any of those times?
Um, I think that there was a lot of times
Yeah.
where it really started to kick in, but when I came out of the surgery and when I finally got the pathology report back, and they had told me that I I didn't have any like it didn't spread into my lymph nodes at all. So that was the biggest news of all, because even if I
Absolutely.
had a microscopic cell in one of those lymph nodes, I would have been lined up for that aggressive chemo and radiation, which, you know, I almost feel like that's worse than the cancer itself
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so it was then at that point that I really started to develop a deeper perspective on things and what I was really missing out on and what I wasn't paying attention to. And more than that, what I wasn't grateful for. You know, so it just gave you a deeper appreciation of everything that we all take for granted.
Which is, I think we can all say we take the majority of our life for granted. We do.
Oh, for sure. We take every single day for granted, right?
Yeah.
So we just, you know, expect, you know, the next day is just going to be there, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
um, you don't walk around, you know, expecting the rug to be pulled out from underneath you, but you're also not grateful for the fact that it hasn't. So,
It's, I would say, and I can completely understand in a sense that gratitude was a turning point for me, but I struggled to get there. It took me a long time to get there to be grateful because, um, grateful meant that I'm like, but I didn't ask for this. How can I have something to be grateful for? Yeah, you know what? I
mm,
still
mhm,
had a home. I still had this. I still had this. Like I had many things. And it became a real mindset shift to use gratitude as a way to recognize what I do have and to shift my thinking. Like
yeah,
my thinking, it's going down the negative path faster than I can stop it. I would say the moment when you can't find a single thing to be grateful for is the exact moment you have to do it. You have to pull it back to gratitude.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah. So gratitude practice obviously became something big for you, and a turning point, as you say, a little bit of a turning point in your life. And what is your gratitude practice like? Is it something that you do daily? Is it something that you just on a regular basis throughout the day? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, gratitude comes in many different things, right? So you start to appreciate the little things a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You appreciate those birthdays, and
Mm-hmm.
you appreciate the little milestones in life and the little things, right? So,
Right.
it's one of those things that I always get upset with people when, they hit over 35 and they're like, oh, I don't celebrate my birthday anymore. And it's like, you know what? That really bothers me, because every single year that you're alive, you need to be celebrating that.
Yes.
And it's not about your age. It's not about, any of that other stuff. It's about the fact that, you need to appreciate what you've actually got in front of you. So I always give everybody the lecture on that whenever they're like, oh, I've been 35 for the last, or I don't do anything for my birthday. I don't even celebrate that. And, you should celebrate every single day, not just your birthday. You should celebrate every single minute, right?
Yes.
So,
Absolutely.
it's the little things. So, and it was after I had the cancer, then, that's when I really scaled back on my work life. And I
Mm.
created what it is that I'm doing right now, um, basically out of that situation, because I knew I needed more work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to have those moments that I can appreciate with my little girl, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's it. They kind of took a whole new spin on things, and it was right after I had the cancer that I went out on my own, and I haven't looked back. So
Wow, that's amazing. That's awesome. I've been in the healthcare field, personal training, registered kinesiologist for 25 years.
mhm.
So love the field. I'm very grateful for the work that I've done. But I know at the pits of the times when life was the hardest for me, I was resenting my job because it was taking a
That's exactly.
tremendous amount of energy to fake it. Like I
Yep.
couldn't even, because you know what? I mean, people come to you not to listen to you bitch about your day or your,
Yeah.
because they've got their own stuff too, right? And so it became this practice of faking it and putting my face on and pretending and, not answering specific questions because I just didn't want to go that direction.
Yep.
And it took its toll because I'm a very real person. I don't hide very well. So hiding takes a tremendous amount of energy. So I can completely understand why, taking it into some online training as well, you can still make an impact in people's lives. Absolutely. But it allows you a little bit more balance that is not
Absolutely.
easy to do in this field. I get people all the time. They're like, well, you only have 25 hours. It's not even that much work. And I'm like, okay, it's not how it works. It's not how it works. Like 25 hours is like 40 to 50 hours a week I'm working.
Pretty
Right?
much. Yep.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, I love it. I'm grateful for it. I am. But it certainly was, I had to learn to let go and not worry what everyone was thinking or saying, because it was taking more energy from me in order to do that job and be
Yeah.
in
Oh, yeah.
those spaces.
Absolutely. I'm definitely, I would say, at a place of much greater peace with myself
That's
these
awesome.
days.
That's
Hmm.
awesome. That's awesome. I love that. So you obviously, I would say your mindset and where you are right now has changed your thinking, as far as you can see how that ripple effects into all of your life,
Hmm.
right? Like as far as even your time with your daughter, probably your time with your clients, where you're at right now. So that mindset, can you see that rippling into?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
And do you have moments where you catch yourself and you're like, oh, like, so, people who are listening now just want, because you put some transparency to it, days that you struggle with gratitude, days that you struggle with frustration.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you're
I'm like
human.
anyone else, right? But
Yeah.
I've had those days for sure. And just because, what it is that I do, it it takes a lot of energy from me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be that sounding board for everybody else.
Yes.
So there's days where, you're not even much of a sounding board for yourself. So just to spare everybody, I usually, change things up, switch things around, and take that day because today's just not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So you've learned to respect that, and you've learned to really listen to what you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. So that was,
Because like you said, it's like it takes that much more energy just to fake it. And
huge.
and I mean you can't fake it that much. People will be
I
able
was
to feel it and
terrible
read
at
it.
it. It was terrible. I thought I had it all figured out, right? I did. I thought for sure I had it all figured out. No one knows. They don't know. No one's going to know. And it wasn't until things started to become quite public with our story and our family that honestly it was like people were like, I knew something's been up for like you have not been yourself, or you this, that. Like people knew.
Yeah.
People knew. But I just didn't even have the energy to deal with people. Like, to be honest, I just didn't want to be around people because it was that was exhausting. And it's
for sure. Absolutely.
People mean well. I think this is the other side of reflection. I mean, I do believe that people mean well and they're doing the best that they can with the information that they have. But, when you have had something go wrong that's, of serious nature, and you have had cancer, or you have had to deal with some very difficult things, sometimes people don't know what to say. So they look at you funny. They look at you differently. They're afraid to say the wrong thing. So they sometimes.
And most times they do, but they don't intentionally mean to.
Right. So they don't intentionally mean to. So what would you know what? It's funny because what would you say would be something now that you've gone through it on this end, what would you do for a good friend who was going through something like this? Or what would you do differently?
Well, I know the things not to say.
Yes.
And a lot of times, it's as simple as when people ask a cancer patient, oh, how are you doing? Well, how do you think I'm doing? I have cancer. How are you doing?
No, and I'm not laughing. I don't mean to laugh. It's a good point. And I think it's a really good point.
And it's just something so simple like that, right? And, it's just about rewording things where it's just like, how is today? Or how are you doing today? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's kind of like you're taking things on more of a day by day level. Yeah. So today's a good day. Today's a bad day. Today's a, kind of an in between day, that type of thing. Right. But it's more specific instead of just how are you doing? Well, how do you think I'm doing?
And how
are you doing?
Yeah, how are you doing? Yeah, exactly. And I think that's great advice for people to understand. And I would say, like, living in the moment, like living in this moment, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Typically, when I'm stressed about something, it's that I'm anxiety about hasn't happened yet.
Right.
Hasn't happened yet. Or I'm reliving something that I can't change either. So there's an absolute waste of energy on both ends of
absolutely
100% waste of energy. So living in the present moment, I believe that when you talk to a lot of people who've gone through some very difficult situations, that's one of the common messages you hear that they learn is they've learned how to live now. They've learned how to live right now, and then be grateful for what they have right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that would be the one lesson I would say I'm probably most grateful for, is learning how to live right now. When somebody said to me just recently, what are you going to do when the shoe drops again? I'm like, then I'm going to stop and pick up the shoe. Like I'm going to pick it up.
What else can you do?
I can't.
If you think about it right now, it's not going to change it. It's not going to make it not happen if it's going to happen, right?
So no. And I know that sounds very flippant to some people who might be listening to it, but when you are faced with something that is life altering, you learn that eventually, that was not a lesson that I picked up in the beginning. That took a lot of time to learn it. Mm-hmm. But eventually it's just a case that I can't control that. I can't change that. So I've only got X amount of energy a day. So how can I possibly add and spend it wasting it on things that I can't change or affect?
Absolutely.
Right.
100%.
Now, it's interesting. We didn't talk about this, but I really want to ask this question because I think that you have a different perspective on it, is that, so when people are in the pits of stress and they're in the pits of, life is really not fair at the time. There's a lot of things that are going wrong. I think back to myself in that time, and I was exercising regularly. Mm-hmm. And I was eating fairly well, but I wasn't listening to what I needed, and my mind space was not. So, I just thought, well, just keep pushing, right? You just keep pushing, keep exercising, keep pushing. And that was a point in life where I decided to try and take up yoga. And I can't tell you how much I hated yoga in the beginning. Sorry to any of my yogi friends who listen, hated it because I'm like, I can't stand here and think because this is present. This is
Yes.
present moment, and I can't do that. It was like anxiety tenfold, but it was exactly what I needed to do.
Right.
And so for myself, I just wanted to ask on that, and your thoughts on that is that, of course, nutrition is important, and of course, exercise is important. But what happens when you miss that link of mindset and, positive and grateful, and like, it's a big missing link.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people, I'm all about science-based, right? So I I'm one of those people that I'm guilty that I need to work more on the spiritual side of things, like how you're feeling, your emotions in this. So I tend to push those aside, and I'm more about like the science, like, okay, if this is the problem, A, B, C is the problem, how can I fix this?
Right.
On, a cellular level, on, something like that. So I definitely drop the ball when it comes to, dealing with how I'm feeling in that situation. So that's something that I'm really needing to work on and culture a little bit more, because that's the part where I think, has a great deal to, like, if that's the energy, right? So if you're not moving forward with what you need to, or you're sick, or you've got all these roadblocks or something like that, it's typically you're creating, or that circumstance is created by some type of energy blockage, right? So something else is stopping you, and it's not to do with, like, working out and eating right and drinking all your water and all of that stuff, right? So
no, it becomes more than just that, right? Those are your general recommendations that are made through science, that are made, they're all good. But what do we do when life deals you like a big pile of crap, and your energy level is at its lowest, and you're hammering the crap out of yourself with because I think I just, not diagnosed, not science, whatever. For me, I think I hit a real serious adrenal fatigue, a really serious adrenal, like, crashed fatigue. And it took me a long time to recover from that. And I know it's because I wasn't listening. I was not listening. I was trying to take my old methods to deal with a new problem, and it wasn't working. And I wasn't being foresight enough to say, this is not working. Like, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. Right? So it's just, learning the skills of being able to turn everything and internalize it, right? So, but yeah.
We're all learning.
I'm all about the perseverance and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, right? And I think, that perspective has gotten me to where I am today, but there's a whole lot, like, that's missing, because I'm just pushing and I'm not stopping and listening, right? So
well, I appreciate your transparency and your honesty, because I think that when you have reached some of the levels of success that you have, and you have overcome the challenges, it's very easy for people to think that she's got it all figured out. It's all perfect. And
I get that all the time. That's always the funniest thing to me.
Yeah, I bet you do. I mean, honestly, you can see from your online and what you do in your presence. I mean, you have worked incredibly hard physically, and I mean, you deserve all the kudos for that, 100%. But it doesn't mean that it's easy, or that it's all figured out. Got it all with no, right?
Well, it's definitely not all figured out. That's for sure. Over the last 10 years that I had a series of a bunch of things that kind of knocked me down. And it wasn't just like, I mean, the cancer was definitely a large aspect of it, but it wasn't the whole thing. Like, I lost like a partner to cancer in 2005. And at that time I was 28 and he was 30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he, like, I was one of the main caregivers, and to watch somebody pretty quickly deteriorate to the ravages of cancer, it really hit home on a psychological level. Like, it really had a huge ramification to that. So a year after he passed away, then I was diagnosed with a massive depression. And then 2007, I was duped by a company that wanted to bring me on board and leave a lucrative job that I had, where I was working all across Canada. And when I came back here after I left that job, and I came back here to work this job, then, or that job, sorry, the contract was written out for me for $35,000 less than what was originally agreed upon.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I was left with no option but to work that job. I consequently sued them, but in the process of all of that, I experienced complete financial ruin and lost everything. Um, and then I was diagnosed with high functioning anxiety disorder from all of that.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
I did sue them and I did win.
Good for
But
you.
I've still yet to see one single penny from it.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, the big O.
Oh.
Um, and then, of course, in 2011, it was discovered at the 5-month mark that I was pregnant with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And she was definitely the most wonderful surprise and blessing of them all. However, it left me being a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I struggled tremendously to, be able to survive with her and create the best possible life for her. So that was that milestone. And then 2013, that's when I got hit with the breast cancer. So at the age of 36. So
Massive amounts of stress leading up to that, right?
I'm turning 40 next month. So, I mean, I've gone through hell in a handbag, and I'm definitely celebrating this birthday because
You should.
um,
You should. You
it's
should.
all uphill from there.
It is absolutely
For the
uphill.
love of God, it needs to be.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I mean, that's sometimes you look at it and I mean, you're not playing that card at all, but you got to look at it sometimes and go, okay, I've gone through more in my first 40 years than some people ever go through in their lifetime.
Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like I've lived the life of about 100 people, but
Yeah.
I guess in a way I kind of have. So
You have. So how do you keep persevering? How do you keep persevering because you got to think of some of those steps that you went through there and the challenges. How do you just keep going?
I think the biggest thing for me is that I worked hard to make the best of what I had.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got very little to work with, but you have to always try and rise to the higher ground.
Yes.
You're going to suffer one way or another, so you just hope that you have the strength and the perseverance and good friends and faith and some kind of faith, and to be able to endure and move on and into greener pastures. It's like I use the hashtag all the time in a lot of my posts, and I say to my clients all the time, just keep pushing, just keep pushing.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what I did. I never stopped, and I never have, I never will. So
yeah. It wasn't, I do believe that we all consciously make the choice to keep going or not keep going.
yeah, I mean, you've got two choices in life in any type of situation, right?
Always.
So your choice is to either persevere and push through or play the victim and just sit there.
Yeah.
So, it's up to you what you choose to do with what you're dealt with.
And I love that. And I love that you said that because, I mean, we're all human. And so when we have some of the crap storms dealt to us, there is a victim mode. And I remember being in that space thinking I don't want to be a victim, but
right.
I was a victim and I allowed myself to be one for a long time because I was always stuck in why is this happening?
Why is this happening to me?
Why is this happening to me? This is it's not fair. I didn't ask for this. What did I do wrong? I must have done something wrong.
Yeah.
Why is this? And the why was literally killing me. Honestly, I had to learn to stop saying why. So every time the why would come up, the why doesn't matter. The why doesn't matter. That's all I just kept saying. It doesn't matter because it doesn't give you a solution. The what is the only thing. What can you do now? What can you do next? What can you do today to change your mindset? And so, I mean, I would literally talk to myself all the time that it's I don't want to stay in victim mode.
Right.
It's suffocating. It was suffocating to be there.
Right? And it's easy to fall into that trap.
Oh.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, because
regularly. Yep.
Yeah, because like you said, you're thinking about the why. Why is this happening to me? And every time you hear somebody talk about the law of attraction and you attract everything that happens to you.
I so love you said that because I actually I'm just
how the hell did I attract this to me?
Okay, I love that you said that because and I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. But did I ever not like that saying when it was.
Oh, I bet.
So I'm like, I'm sorry, I asked for this? Like,
Yeah.
are you kidding? Like, I didn't ask for this. Or if you just think positively, you can change it. And I was like, no.
Oh, that's it.
No, I can't. Actually, no, I can't. And
How
so
easy.
I actually really, really resented that and was really angry because in the pitfalls of it, it was like, I did not ask for this. There's no universe I asked for this.
Yeah. Try saying that to any cancer patient.
You
and see
can't.
what kind of a response you're going to get.
No. So you know what? I think and not as a cancer patient, but as just in that mindset, what I used to have to say is, okay, but what can I do? Like how I act and react is my choice.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ask for this. The law of attraction, like a law of attraction isn't going to bring more of this, isn't going to take it away. My headspace is going to be everything. Like it's my headspace is going to control, dictate, decide what I can do with this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, I came out of it, and I personally believe that character it's never developed with ease and quiet. It's only through the experience of trial and tribulation and suffering that the soul is strengthened and ambition inspired and your success is achieved, right? So our uniqueness, I feel, and our overall individuality and our life experiences as a whole kind of molds us into these fascinating little beings, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of it all, like I really started to discover that, and I really started to embrace that, so it's not until you really embrace that, I think you can really push forward. So, and you take it as like, these are my experiences. You're never dealt with more than what you can't handle. So
it's a hard one. It's a hard one, but it is. Yep. I used to say to myself, there were times I used to say, okay, I have the answer inside of me. I know I do. I need to stop and listen. I know I am here for a reason because I can handle this. So what can I do? Like, what can I do next? Everything became about the what. What can I do? And instead of being angry, it's like, okay, I'm in this situation for a reason. What can I do with it?
Yeah.
What can I do? And maybe this was the situation that my kids needed. They needed somebody who was going to be able to say, no, this is not going to happen like that. Like, I don't know, whatever that was. But I do believe that at one point in time that I was in this situation for a reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And taking that, I think something I've always admired just from in the short time I've known you is that you're taking your challenges and putting them not just out there to coach other women to have success, but you're really being very transparent and very real. And this is the struggle, because I do think that people need to see that. And I have this real belief that the more open and honest we are and share, the more the next person's going to feel comfortable sharing, etc.
Well, and I think, a lot of people, will look at a personal trainer specifically and look at them as if they're immortal, like as if, nothing can beat them down. Like, nothing can,
they've got it all, right? They've got it all. Yeah.
You've got it figured out. You don't have any challenges. It was like I said to you the other day where I was saying years ago when I worked in the gyms, I don't know, I think I was like in my early 20s. And I was talking at that point to somebody about personal training. And this woman had said to me, well, what do you like, how can you possibly tell me what it is that I need when you haven't had a baby and you haven't been overweight and you haven't dealt with, this, that, and the other thing and blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, what, in a way she was kind of right. But, so I think that conversation years and years and years ago has basically set the forefoot as to why I'm so transparent now, because I think that transparency actually makes me more real. It makes me more approachable, that I'm not immortal. You know what I mean? Like, I've battled through all of this stuff, and I'm fighting to make sure that no matter what it is, I'm going to try and come out as far on top as I possibly can. So
yeah, I love it. I absolutely love that transparency, and I love to see women doing that and standing in their place to do that. And I mean, I've been very fortunate to connect with some amazing people through MoMondays and through the events and speaking. And I just sit there sometimes and I'm like, oh, I just love that women stand up and share their story. Like,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that they do that. And it doesn't mean that they have all of their crap together. Like, it doesn't mean it's all perfect and easy. You just kind of have to accept that that's where we are at that point in time. And I just think that when we do that, we give space for other people to go to follow and be able to share their stories well.
Absolutely.
The more we do that, the more we realize, like, we are so not alone. We think we are. We're not even close. There's so many people who are struggling day in, day out, who aren't sharing or saying a thing. And I'm sure when you've spoken at MoMondays events, people have come up to you afterwards. Like, I've had people come up to me and they're like, that was my story. And that was my story. And I'm like, but I've never told anybody and I've never shared it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've had women who have related, right? Because you have been transparent about sharing that.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
So, and at the end of the day, you know, I love that. I love that. It's truly gratifying to me to be able to tell that story and make myself relatable to somebody else, because at the end of the day, you know, I've hopefully, you know, given them some perspective as to how they're going to take their situation and deal with it a little bit differently.
Right. Exactly. So my one question that I always refer to is gifts. Like, can you recognize the gifts in your adversities? And gifts are a funny word to use, but it was something I really decided to use because I think that we can pull something good that we've learned out of no matter what our situation is. And plus it allows me to twist a little bit of gratitude into times when I don't want to, like when it's not something that I practice. So can you see different gifts in the challenges that you have gone through?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is, you know, when I really sit back and take a look at the whole picture,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't intend on ending up as a personal trainer. I actually originally went through high school and I was more interested in becoming a fashion designer.
Oh, wow.
And it just kind of happened by circumstance that I ended up in this field. And it was mostly because of the fact that my parents had no intention of paying for me to go to fashion school. So I had an option to you know, go get a degree somewhere else, or, you know, that was it. So I kind of ended up in this field by an accident, but when I look at the bigger picture, as I was saying, I don't think it was an accident at all. You know, so I'm in a situation and I'm in a place where, you know, people will look up to me to, like, regardless, just because of what it is that I do for them on the fitness level.
Right.
You know, so I think that, you know, when I take a larger look at, you know, all of the adversities, I think that those situations, I firmly believe that all of our situations are designed to happen to us regardless. And there's really no stopping what's going to end up being our story.
Right.
But I do also think that it's quite a coincidence that I'm in the position that I am and able to tell my story, you know, so it goes hand in hand. And, you know, it's given me, like I said, a broader perspective on the whole situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I mean, and we're very grateful that you are sharing your story, because that is definitely something that needs to be shared more, right? It definitely needs to be shared more. So as a result of everything you've kind of gone through, what is one of your personal missions now? What are you on a mission to do?
Just basically share the wealth of my experiences, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Explain, like, to other women in the midst of their own wars and struggles that, you know, you really shouldn't view your challenges as disadvantages. Instead, understand that your experience and what you're overcoming in adversity is actually one of your biggest advantages overall. You know, so being able to fight that fight and come out on top, you know, like that's where your advantage comes from. Because at the end of the day, even like, you know, if you were to say that to me while I was in the midst of what it was that I was going through, I would say that you're absolutely nuts. But when I take a look at it now, looking back on it, you know, I wouldn't have become, you know, even an eighth of the woman that I am today if I hadn't have gone through what it was that I went through. So then that's where the gratitude comes from. And, you know, I'm grateful for the experiences that I went through. And I mean, they were awful and horrible, and I wouldn't wish them upon anybody, but at the end of the day, you know, it made me who I was. And, you know, and that's something that I can pass down in wisdom or in knowledge, you know, to other women. Then I feel like I've done my job here on earth. I've done my job. I've done what I was sent here to do. So I think that fills my purpose.
I think that is absolutely beautiful. And I thank you for sharing that, because I think that there's a lot of power in the words that you said there. And the fact that, you know, if we love ourselves for who we are now and what we are here to do and to help others and to impact, if we can love ourselves now, that also means we have to love every experience that be grateful for every experience that has made us who we are. And when I read that quote a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, ouch, that actually makes sense. Like, I can't resent all the bad things that happened that helped to make me who I am. I can't resent them. I wouldn't wish them. You said it perfectly. I wouldn't wish them on anyone else. I would never want someone else to go through them, but they will, and it will happen. And so being grateful for the lessons that I've learned, you know, those lessons, most of the time, you can read about anything. You can read about, you know, stories and how-to books and self-help books. But until you walk the walk, until you live those days, day in, day out, in your house, in your life, that's where the real learning comes from. Like, that is the learning. That is where it's like, you know what, you sink or you swim. You figure out how to adapt that into your life and how to live like that and live those lessons.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. There's so much content there. Oops, sorry. So much content there. I know it's in microphones once in a while. So before I ask the last two questions, can you let me know, like, can we tell everybody where they can connect with you and what it is that you're offering them right now? So you do with your online training programs and how that works.
I have, well, one of the biggest ones that I do have is the 6 Weeks to Sexy program.
Yep.
That program really was inspired by my whole breast cancer experience, because it was after I had that and I had the disfiguring surgery, and, you know, it was really hard for me to get back in front of the camera and be comfortable in my own skin again. Yes. So I really took a little bit of a spin on that and incorporated it into my programming, where, you know, it's all about empowering women at the end, right? And giving them back that power that maybe was taken from them for whatever reason. Like, you know, maybe they, you know, don't feel good about themselves after having a baby, or, you know, maybe some surgery that they've had as well, or whatever, what have you, right? So, you know, it's about creating like the best, strongest version of them, and empowering them to love themselves again in front of the mirror, in front of the camera, and just be able to look at themselves and say, you know what, God damn it, I've gone through hell, I've done this, I've done that, and look at me, I look fantastic. And that's there. I mean, it's that type of like raw, organic form of empowerment. You know, it's unbelievable once you experience it. So
I absolutely love that, because you think of the message that most women are getting on a daily basis from social media, from people, from trainers, from, you know, nutrition programs and everything. Magazines, everything.
Celebrities.
They're not getting that message. They're not getting the message that you're sharing. And I love that. I think that that's great. I think that is definitely something women need more of.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, and it's finding perfection in their imperfections, right? And seeing the beauty in all of that. So
absolutely. So that is that something that's ongoing, or does that have started?
Yeah, that's ongoing. That's on my website. I do have other online programs specifically for moms that have like next to no time, or feel that they have next to no time. So they make next to no time for themselves. So You know, it's again about just giving back to you and creating, you know, enough love and time and energy for yourself,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, that's two of my huge focuses, being that I work primarily with moms and new moms and women going into menopause. So I do a lot of focusing on empowerment, I would say,
That's
mostly.
awesome. I love it. And the best way to connect with you then?
Through my website, www.michellegfitness.com. And my oh my gosh, why can't I ever think of these things?
Social
my,
media?
yeah, my Instagram is gfitnessmichelle.
Yep.
And Twitter is gfitmichelle.
Yep.
And
Your
yeah,
yeah, I see. So I've got, and I'll put those in that note as well. But
yep,
one of the best, like you'll find all of Michelle's programs through,
on my website,
right?
yes.
Through, www.michellegfitness.com. So
Yes.
all of that information would be there as well.
And you can connect with me directly off of there. So
awesome. That's awesome. Two quick questions for you before we wrap up. What message would you go back and tell your younger self? And you could pick any age. You could pick any age. It doesn't have to be a, you know, at a trauma time, at a whatever. But is there a certain message you would go back and tell your younger self?
from my own experience, I would say to follow your heart. And then the mind will follow that. Believe in yourself. You'll create your own miracles that way. And never doubt what your heart tells you, and always, always follow your gut.
You can't. I always say, what my answer to this is always that you know the answer.
Yeah,
you always know the answer. Like that's what I honestly, and I used to say that mantra to myself.
When you go, what do I do? What do I do?
Yeah,
and it's just
you
already know.
You already know the answer. Like, that's the message. One of my key messages I would go back and tell my younger self is you already know the answer.
That's very true.
Stop listening to everyone else. Slow it down because you know the answer.
Exactly.
And yeah. So I can completely relate to that. I love it. Last question. What lesson in your life are you the most grateful for?
As crazy as it sounds, all of them actually. I'm very grateful for them all. I'm sure, like I said before, if you were to ask me while I was in the process of dealing with them, I'd say you're probably nuts. However, I definitely don't say that anymore. I take it all in stride. There's a deeper understanding to the things that may seem unfortunate or as a challenge, as I mentioned before as well too. And you could say at the end of it all, I have a much deeper respect for the term to rise to the challenge. So, you know, that's kind of one of my biggest things for sure. One of the biggest lessons is just to rise to the challenge.
Wow. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. No, it is. I absolutely love that. Somebody said to me last week that how can you become bigger than your challenge? So become bigger than your challenge so that your challenge is smaller. We tend to look at our challenge as the mountain and we're the person. How can you become bigger? What do you have to do to become bigger?
Right.
And that was like, oh, it's a great way of thinking of it. I hadn't thought of it that way.
That's exactly it right there.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. You know what? Is there anything else you would like to add today?
I think you got pretty much all of me there.
I got all of you in there. Perfect. Thank you so much. You know what? I just want to thank Michelle for her time and her transparency today, and for her sharing her nuggets from her stories, from her life nuggets. I know lessons, whatever we want to call it, and what she has learned and how she's. And we really thank you for being here today and for sharing and being so transparent with us. So
thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
You are welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And I encourage you to share this with anyone else that you believe that the message might land or speak to. And until the next time, please remember to own your choices and you can truly own your life. Thank you and have a great day.